Please, let's continue. Obviously, this is a roadmap. Well, we're going to discuss what we have delivered, but it's a roadmap, so we all know roadmap can change. But yeah, let's see what we have and what we will cover moving forward. We are, and as you may know, looking at features, functionality, improvements for our platform in 5 waves, five areas, 5 pillars: user experience, integration capabilities, technology advantage, operational cost reduction, and deployment models. And as you may know, and for those of you who are new, this is the way we present what has been delivered and what we intend to do towards the next quarter. Yes, very well, and very welcome. And Christian, please take it from here, and then yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Ulf. Again, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Christian Gassman. Welcome to 2025 and our first quarterly update. So today's session covers the enhancements and changes that we are delivering with the release BIS 67166, our, if you will, Christmas release of 2024. Some numbers as usual, enhancements and increments in this quarter. Again, a high number in the user experience area as well as in the operational cost reduction areas. Always important, as you all know, moving from our old user interface to the new web-based interfaces. We have a few demos prepared for you today. I want to show you some enhancements across the BIS platform and the various apps. I will show you a brief demo about enhancements in the database data manager. And we're also going to show you a little bit more about our multi-factor authentication in the BIS portal. Let's start in the area of user experience. What have we now shipped in the recent release? Frequently asked for in process monitoring is the advanced search and better search tools to make it easier and more familiar to search for process data. We've also improved the sequence monitoring in this area. We've made some enhancements in the master data navigator to more easily configure B2B and integration solution flows. Also enhance the trading partner lookup to make it better for you to identify duplicates or define the priorities of different configurations. In the DB Data Manager, we've added support for parent-child tables. I will show that in the demo. And then also in the user management, we've improved the handling of trusted devices and the sessions that are open in the portal for each user. So again, this will also be shown in the little demo later. So we'll start with the enhancements across a number of apps in the platform. Let me bring up the BIS Process Monitor. As I mentioned, we have made some enhancements just in general for user experience. The timeline and the filters that you see here that sometimes obstruct the view a little bit too much, especially on smaller screens like I have here for this demo, can now be easily hidden through an additional button in the menu bar. We can hide the timeline. We can also hide the filters. This also makes the UI a little bit more responsive because hiding those will basically avoid doing the calculations for the timeline and the filters. So it makes the UI a bit more responsive when you switch and back and forth between different filter types. As mentioned, we have added in a search mask for the searches so that you can more easily build the search expressions. So it allows you to pick and choose the different fields available for the search. And it allows you to then add directly here your search terms. As you see in the little information, blank white spaces are treated as separators so that the values are linked as OR. This is something that I think a lot of you have also looked for in the past when you have a list of track IDs and you want to search for all of these. You could then again paste all of them in here like so. This would give you a list of those 4 track IDs, the search here using the OR expression. Another example, if you're familiar with the integration solution and the 6-character adapter names, it's easy then to search for different processes. For example, processes started by the scheduler time event and the file system adapter. I could put in both of these adapter names, press search, and it then brings me up the processes accordingly. So this is a good enhancement, as I said, frequently requested. It allows you also to basically go through all of the search fields available for search more easily without having to know which one or how exactly they are named in the system. So you see when the search is performed, it will then create the search expression for you in the search bar. So you have the expression here. You can then also share this as usual to a colleague so that they have the same search results when they look at this shared search result. I mentioned that we have made some improvements for sequence monitoring. So if you use the sequence functionality, you have a monitoring that shows you active sequences with their current sequence number, with the expected sequence number. So we have now added some interaction here. We were already able to abort the sequence. For example, if an element is stuck in the sequence and kind of blocks it, we can abort it. We can now also delete and reset the sequence, meaning we can reset it to a particular value. That, of course, is very helpful if we want to reset it, for example, completely to a particular offset. Yeah. What else have we improved? We've also made it more easy for users that are familiar with the old tree view from the classic front end and how it presents errors in this classic view. If you open up a process that failed and you look at the process details, if you're familiar with the classic view, it is now easier to navigate and find the exact position where the error occurred. We have a little icon up here that shows us the classic tree view. We see then exactly at what activity step the process failed. We can navigate directly there and see the details of the service performed here. For example, here, calling the REST client, getting a particular error back from the adapter. So it makes it easier to navigate here. And as I said, for those very familiar with this classic view, hopefully helpful to debug and trace errors. Yeah, and in general, I mentioned this already, we've worked on giving you more screen real estate for what you are actually interested in by being able to hide certain elements like the timeline, like the filters more easily. The view that you create and whether the timeline and filter are shown or hidden is remembered per search profile. So if I switch over, for example, to the integration profile, now the timeline reappears. So I do have to hide it for each profile specifically, but the view is then remembered across. And so if I go back and forth, it will remember the last state of those elements. I want to highlight also some improvements in the control center. What is often used here, of course, are the adapter interactions. As an example, I'll run a adapter interaction in the converter. I'm going to use a map here just to showcase how this works now. It's now presented as a wizard screen. So you have first the configuration of the interaction. Then we execute this interaction, and you see now this interaction. In this case, it's running. It offers me the option to run it in the background rather than waiting for the response. So I can do that. Basically, clicking on Run in Background will give me the option now to go back to Control Center. I can now start another interaction if I would like, and I can also now from here directly look at the interactions as they are logged also in the monitor. So clicking on the little icon here will pop out another screen for the process monitor and will show me now the interactions for the big client. So you see here my interaction that I just started. It's a longer running one. It's intended to run for 2 minutes in the map, just to show you that we have now an active interaction that was started here by the user. And I can see the results of all these interactions here as well. So I have logging for the interactions. They don't just disappear. I'm able to go back and view the result here as well. Let me also show you some smaller enhancements in the Master Data Navigator. We've made some improvements specifically for the flow configuration. I can show this here with the example would be in the MFT type, integration type processes. You are probably familiar now with the flow editor that we have here. We've also worked on giving you more space to work with. We can increase and decrease the size of the toolbox as well as of the configuration panel, especially important for larger input fields to be able to more easily see the information here in the configuration. But small quality of life enhancements, hopefully useful for all of you. In the configuration editor for the B2B solution, and also if you do use custom solutions, this will also benefit you here. We've made an enhancement to display also the components here in a better format and add a filter for these. So rather than having to choose them all from a large list that you have to kind of scroll through and find the right component that you would like to add, we now put this front and center on the side here, similar to the flow editor for the integration solution. We have a little toolbox here. We can filter that toolbox, let's say, for example, to find set properties activity. In B2B solution, I have 3 places where I can add it in my pre-processing, post-processing, or final processing. So I get these displayed here now, and I can then add this activity to my configuration and yeah, set the parameters. So as you see, a lot of enhancements around quality of life, often, of course, based on the feedback that you as our users gave in the past. We try to make these enhancements useful and, of course, help you in your daily operations with the applications.
So I have, sorry, Christian, it was 2 questions related to the demo, so I think we asked that now. They are kind of related in a way. So there was one, and I think we just need to be more specific here. So from which version is this advanced searching introduced, what you did in the beginning? That was one. And the second one, it seems like this person is looking at his own version at the same. Should I search view? Should the search view look the same for everyone? I'm looking right now at the same tab that you were doing, I assume, but he couldn't find the advanced search. So maybe you can just clarify this part if the question is clear to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the enhancements for this search are delivered with BIS 6.7 166, which was the release that just came out at the end of Q4. So probably you won't have that live yet on your environment, whether it's on-premise or in the SEEBURGER Cloud. The SEEBURGER Cloud will usually roll out these releases around mid Q1, the following quarter. So I would expect sometime in February these features will appear if you have a SEEBURGER Cloud system. Of course, if you have on-premise environment, then it depends on your update cycle for your on-premise systems.
Cool. So there is another question, but I think you'll answer that with the next slide. So let's continue and then we take it from there. So.
Sure. Yeah, so what else have we planned for the applications and for the user interface? We have had feedback about logical systems and how the view all functionality in the old classic front end was used, at least at a number of customers, very heavily. So we are exploring how to bring this same functionality over to the process monitor and some of the other applications. We also want to combine the advanced search that I just shown you with a new feature we have, let's say, tentatively called process collections. So it would allow you to search and then store the search result as a collection so that you can then perform bulk operations on that collection, like restarting or acknowledging certain processes, or even sharing those collections with a coworker to then hand over some task for another person to let's say further investigate or act on a certain number of processes. So more collaboration and more let's say abilities of performing bulk actions on a number of processes. We also want to bring over the dashboard that you are familiar with from classic front end around the process engine controls, being able to start, stop, pause the process engines, being able to look at process and adapter statistics and metrics ad hoc in a central location. So some of these dashboard and dashlets that we had in the old classic front end are being planned for the new user interface as well. And then we've had this on our slides for a while, the advanced debugging support for the BIS mapper. We are finally nearing the end of this multi-quarter in development. And we are hopeful that we can present this to you as a demo in the next quarterly session. So if you are looking at BIS Mapper, if you're already actively using BIS Mapper, then definitely plan for attending our next session here as well. In the integration capabilities, we have again made a large number of enhancements. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to highlight the first one here, the support for Microsoft 365 mail accounts via the Microsoft Graph API. That is interesting for those of you who have, let's say, had to plan a migration of the old SMTP, IMAP, or POP3 protocols when integrating with mail accounts in the Microsoft 365 cloud, and are asked by your maybe IT or security department to move away from these old protocols and over to the, let's say, native API that Microsoft offers here. So this is now also supported for the mail integration through Mail Adapter in the various areas of BIS for notifications, for system-generated emails, and so on. And then we have made another, as I said, another range of enhancements here in various adapters, often requested particularly for certain business use cases or security considerations. I want to highlight some feature enhancements in the DB Data Manager and demo that as well. Let me bring up the app for that. The DB Data Manager, if you're not familiar yet with it, is our application to manage database tables in external data sources. So not what is traditionally in the SEEBURGER world or terminology known as logical map tables, but physical tables in other databases outside of the excuse me, BIS system database. So I can add data sources and then display table content in the database data manager, and allow certain users to create, update, delete content from these tables. We've added now a feature to display parent-child relationships in such tables. So for example, here we have an EDI documents table and we have an EDI configurations table. The EDI documents is our parent table. So it contains a number of documents with document type, just as a simple example. And for each of these documents, we have a configuration. So we want to link the configuration table and the relevant entries for each document to the parent table. So in the display of the parent table, we now see that it has a link basically to the configuration table, so that when I want to look at the configuration for a particular row, like the debit note, I can click directly here and get the content of the child table as it relates to the parent row. So for the document number 6, the debit note, I have 2 configuration entries in my child table that are now displayed here. This also allows me to add new data to the child table and validate and link it correctly to the row in the parent table. So if I create a new entry here, it already populates the relationship to the parent table, the foreign key basically, and then allows me to add another configuration key. And save that for the child. So then I get another entry here, automatically generated a new ID for it, automatically populated the parent relationship, and have another key value pair for the parent. So going back to the parent table, we have, as I said, for each of these relationship. When we look at the configuration, currently this is created in the YAML model here that describes the table. We see in the parent table, it defines a children, one or more children that are linked by the configuration ID, and basically allow us to define how the call out to the child table should be displayed here as configuration. And then similarly on this child table, we have a relationship here as a foreign key from the child back to the parent. And it also defines what is my foreign key here. So which document or which table, which column name is linked from the child back to the parent. So this allows us again to create these relationships also in a nested fashion. So you can have, of course, children, grandchildren, and further descendants of a table, and link multiple child tables, or define this in any way necessary, basically. All right, any questions in this section, Ulf? Have you seen anything further?
No, all good. Let's continue. So far,
sure.
Hang on, there is one here. Sorry, it was popping up.
Yep.
Yeah, which is good. Can you hide the child tables from the view? Was the question.
Yes, I think for the users you can. So basically that the child tables are not shown. I think for the administrator you still need to have them in there so that you have access to the configuration. But of course for the typical users that you provide this functionality to, you want to hide the child tables. That's correct. Yeah, so that the user, the business user that has access here, will only see the parent and can then navigate to the children just from the view of the parent, right?
Okay, good. Seems to be good. Yeah, let's continue.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, what else have we planned in our integration capabilities? As I mentioned, the debug reports and the advanced debugging functionality will come to a conclusion finally, and we will be able to present and demo this in our next session. We're making some enhancements also for client authentication in the HTTP client adapter. This is interesting for those types of APIs that don't use, let's say, standardized authentication mechanisms like OAuth and similar, but still rely on a token and a token refresh. So that they may have a custom API that allows pulling a token, maybe have a custom API to also refresh the token. So these are not traditionally supported in the HTTP client adapter directly, but we have now enhanced the framework to allow a generic approach where we can basically call a process to then refresh access tokens from a custom API and have this be integrated directly into the client adapter. On the platform itself, we have updated our technical API documentation to the latest version of OpenAPI, version 3. This is in progress right now as well. We're working on support for WebSocket, client and server adapter, something that is occasionally used in the API or asynchronous API ecosystems. And we're also extending the platform for further hardware security modules for other integration scenarios. And as always, we are always investing and researching new connectors in other cloud offerings and services. In the technology improvements, we have now updated again our Java runtime. This is pretty much a regular quarterly update. The embedded Java runtime is now Zulu 21 available, also backported for a number of service packs, quarterly service packs and revisions. Security related topics are, as always, documented in the release notes. For the platform, we have added new system database authentication methods, specifically for Entra ID authentication, formerly known as Azure ID. So this is typically used in Azure deployments in combination with Azure managed identities. So there's a lot of authentication mechanisms that do away with the, let's say, classic user credentials and have identifiers tied to, for example, virtual machines that are then also used for accessing different Azure services like database and storage and so on. So we support these types of authentication mechanisms now as well. And we also have improved and enhanced the Kerberos authentication for Windows and Linux for the system database authentication. What else have we planned here? We are working on harmonizing the BIS-Link infrastructure together with the file transfer server. So overhaul of the BIS-Link and its deployment and rollout approaches. We have planned to also support OpenID as a login for the user management. This often requested also as a single sign-on mechanism. And then we're planning some enhancements for supporting the SAP router and SAP secure network communications for the mapping runtimes. What have we released for the in the area of operational cost reduction? We've introduced new metrics for smart retry in the process engine, so that it becomes easier to evaluate how smart retry is performing. We've also are now enforcing higher security, stricter security for certain expressions. It is by default now blocked to use the bean shell expression in the format that you see here with a $pipe and then an expression text and then terminated by another pipe. This can be used in some areas of the, for example, the integration flows, in the conditions or in the set properties activities. We have in the past allowed that, but it does show, of course, security issues here if that is allowed and too broadly. So we are blocking this by default. If you have used it in the past and you cannot immediately migrate off of these, you can re-enable it temporarily until you have changed the configuration that it's, for example, rather than using the expression directly, you can migrate it to a bean shell script so that it's delivered as a compiled object rather than evaluated directly in the environment. So these are, of course, necessary enhancements for security and platform stability. We've enhanced our SEEBURGER support agent to provide more information about the process templates and solution versions that are deployed on the system. This allows, of course, our support organization to more quickly gather the necessary details for incidents and analyze the system. We've introduced a new restricted delegated admin role in the user management for the delegation if you use different organizations within the user management. So the new role here is available. And then we are shipping enhancements in the platform for the inbox throttling that is more logical system aware to have fewer side effects between logical systems if you use multiple logical systems. We are shipping an enhancement to transfer tasks between different queues, and we're also optimizing performance for the inbox to allow additional creation of index to, for example, for high volume systems that rely on certain additional indexes to improve performance. Let me show you the enhancements around multi-factor authentication. We've mentioned this earlier. Sorry, close my browser. I mentioned this earlier. We have a multi-factor capability in the suite, which allows us to send out a multi-factor code via email when the user logs in for the first time. Once he has logged in, the device is considered a trusted device. So for the user, it is now possible to look at the devices that have logged in the past and also see the sessions that are currently active for the user. So if I start another session, that is not known to the system yet. Let me open that up. Hold on. So if I log in here now with a new session that is not considered a trusted device, it will show me the screen requesting the authentication code that was sent via email. I have a little email server on the side here that allows us to do this in our development environment. So I get a email with the multi-factor authentication code and can then, hold on, put that into the login screen, and I can allow it to remember the device. So if I now do this, I don't have to provide the code on the next login, and I have created basically a new trusted device. And I have two sessions now that are logged in actively, my current session and the other session. If I am unsure why there is a second session, and I can also invalidate that other session that is not the one I'm currently using. So I can remove that, and I'm also able to delete, for example, another device that is registered with the system. So I can delete also this device if I'm unsure if I was logging in from somewhere else, and I want to make sure that nobody else can, of course, reuse that session. So if I return to my previous session that is now invalidated, you see now a session is expired. If I click OK, I'm now kicked out of the sorry, I think I was kicked out. I'm trying to reconnect now. Yeah, I think it's closing all my sessions now, and I am kicked back to the login screen. There we go. Yeah, so this is a tool for the user themselves to check their active sessions and allow removing trusted devices here if they're unsure whether these are still in use or not. Currently, this works via email for the multi-factor authentication. So it sends out an email to the registered email address of the user.
No questions. So I guess we can. There are a few more slides, so I guess we can wrap it up. Let's see if something pops up. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, what else have we planned in the area for operational cost reduction? In the master data navigator, we had some requests and feedback to be able to set certain default values when master data is created. So basically overlay a different set of default values than the ones that the system currently presents as a for example, allow setting stricter security measures and such on some of the master data that is created by users. We also are planning to provide options to migrate tenants, logical systems from one system to another, or even from one logical system to another. This is often interesting when we do platform migrations from ground to cloud. Most often, of course, we might have a on-premise environment that we want to migrate to a cloud environment, maybe as a shared environment in a larger system. So we want to be able to take what is in the on-premise environment and move it into a logical system on another environment in the cloud, for example. And we're also working on a visualization app for the audit logging. We've seen multiple requests around audit logging and tracing some user actions in the environment. We have an audit log currently that is being written out to file, but we want to visualize and display this in a nicer way than going through text-based log files, of course. In the deployment models, not all that much has happened. As you can see, we've integrated the SAML single sign-on login module that we have in the BIS platform, also in the BIS Landscape Manager. So Landscape Manager web installer is now also able to use the same SAML single sign-on for users. And we've also added a feature for easier and automatic configuration of the BIS data store replication when that is set up for active environments. What else is planned here? This is often still ongoing topic around scaling support for different cloud and Kubernetes deployment. We're working heavily also on improving all of our application areas to allow application and service specified as code to further automate rollout and configuration from scratch. And we're continuously evaluating new cloud-native database variants, meaning whenever Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, and others are offering new database variants, like just recently Oracle database at AWS, Oracle database at Azure, so like co-located Oracle database in the AWS or Azure data centers. So we want to evaluate those as well and ensure that you can use those for your deployments. So this is, of course, always ongoing, as there is still a lot of movement in those areas. Yeah, this concludes today's update. Ulf